Doctors and nurses of Reddit who have delivered babies to mothers who clearly cheated on their husbands, what was that like? Paramedic here, our crew delivered a full birth in the back of our rig. We have 2 paramedics in the back with the PT, a driver, and I'm working on the laptop listening to info they are telling me to add to the report. All of a sudden, it goes kind of quiet. I hear the mother let out a very loud, "Oh garbage, it's not white, she was very white." Few more seconds of silence, and I'm like, the driver alarm, beeping light on the center console sent from a button in the back was pressed 2 times quickly, generally meaning to turn around to get info for the report. I turn from the front passenger seat to see a very dark skin-colored baby. I'm guessing Cuban. I can't see the mother's face, but all I see is her shaking her head. She begins to worry, saying that her husband is meeting us there at the hospital, he can't see this. I just continue the report, and am not sure what the problem is, but I guess we'll see when we get there. Flash forward, to the We stop outside the ambulance bay, I get out to open the doors, and am met by another very white heavy-set guy in a uniform shirt, dress pants and glasses, asked me if his wife was in there and she was in labor when he was coming home. Hospital policy dictates that we can't have random people that we can't confirm identity that close to the rig when opening doors for PT safety. Security is there quick, holds him back a bit. We open the doors, roll the PT and her newborn out. He takes one look, sees the color of the baby, jaw drop, look of despair. Like a 1,000-yard stare. Even security had a look like, wow, that women fluffed up, and this guy knows it now. Wife, babe, I can explain every bit of this. I know it looks weird, but I can. We wheel her into No sign of husband. Last I knew, the husband didn't check into the hospital as a visitor. I'm assuming he went home to pack his stuff. Had 2 women give birth a few days apart on my floor. Turns out they actually had the same baby daddy. The father of the 2 newborns got both patients pregnant around the same time. It was an interesting day for the social worker. So a friend of mine, he is unfortunately dead, had cancer and he was dating a girl for about 2 years. He then discovered he had cancer and that he would live at best 1 more year. His girlfriend announced to him a week later that she was pregnant. They were both white. He kept on saying that life is a joke. He was happy because he would have a baby now, but sad because he would die in a year. Anyway, 9 months later the baby was born and it was black. He then disappeared for weeks and we learned that he had died a month later. Felt so fluffing sorry. In high school my gym teacher was married to the biology teacher, who was also really good friends with my math teacher, always saw them chatting and walking together. Well, the bio teacher got pregnant and when she brought the baby in there was an unignorable resemblance to the math teacher. Her husband ended up driving to the nearest hospital and shooting himself dead in the parking lot. Was a big scandal at our relatively small private school. One of a few actually. I was assisting at a cesarean when I was a junior doctor. The woman's dark-skinned partner had been in prison 9 months or so. I took the baby immediately upon delivery and announced cheerily, "It's a boy." Her first words were, "Is it black?" Luckily the baby was a mocha color that could have gone either way, and I told her in a mildly confused manner, it could be. We had a very sweet blonde-haired blue-eyed mom and dad along with their entire extended family in the room for a delivery one busy afternoon at work. Think aunts, uncles, cousins, grandma and grandpa too. The baby is born and as the doctor places her on the mom's chest the first words out of her mouth are, "That's not my baby." That's not my baby. The baby in question, still attached at the umbilical cord, has beautiful dark curly black hair, and dark skin. The nurse looks at her and tells her that this is definitely her baby because she's still attached to you, and she, not so quietly, tells the nurse, "There's no way, I never slept with a black man. It's not mine." The father is standing there silent, not sure what to do. A long awkward silence fills the room. We clean her and baby up as cheerfully as we can. We see the extended family filter out of the room and the father leave to get a cigarette. About 10 minutes later a tall black guy walks up to our front desk asking how to get to the patient in question's room. I know a guy who is fully white, his parents are both white and his younger sister is black. I always assumed she was adopted and one day when I mentioned it, he looked at me weirdly and was like, "No dude, that's my full-blood sister." Obviously I didn't believe it, and apparently neither did his dad at the birth. But they got the paternity test and she was his daughter, likelihood is they've got some black ancestors far enough back to be forgotten about. I also know a dude who has a white Scottish mum, and a black Jamaican dad. Dude came out pale white with a ginger afro. Genetics were not on his side. A friend of mine tells the story of his aunt giving birth in the 1970s or 80s to a baby that at first glance appeared to be of Asian descent. Aunt and her husband are both Caucasian Midwesterners from long lines of the same sort, going back to Germany. There was evidently a shocked moment, and then the aunt's father, my friend's grandfather, quipped, "Well, they say 1 in 7 babies is born Chinese," and everyone laughed. The tension broke long enough for the doctor, also a white Midwesterner of German stock, said that likely the kid's color is just off due to the events of the birth. That baby is now a man in his 30s or 40s, and looks like your typical Midwesterner. He just had some tinge to his skin for a few hours following the birth, plus some dark hair at birth that has since lightened up. Anesthesiologist here. C-sections are typically done under spinal anesthesia, and we're the ones at the head of the table keeping the mother calm and talking her through the procedure while the surgeons operate. I've seen it more than once, but I remember one in particular when the parents were both very Caucasian, and the baby was very much not. The actual father obviously had to be very dark-skinned. At delivery, when the not father saw the baby, he just looked down at his wife, who was starting to cry, and calmly said, "You fluffing whore," and walked out. She started screaming for him to come back, but there wasn't much she could do since she was, still being operated on. She lost it to the point I eventually had to sedate her just a bit because she was in danger of injuring herself. As far as I know, her husband never came back to the hospital. I don't know what happened after that. This isn't exactly what you are looking for, but my mom is black and my dad is white. My mom had kids with her first husband who were black, and they were born somewhat light-skinned, which is common among black children. So she was expecting this, but when she gave birth to my eldest full brother, she thought something was wrong because of how pale he was. Nurse said that happens and he will get color. Fast forward to when it's time for them to go home, the nurses that are now on duty refused to let her go because obviously there had been some sort of mix-up. She was literally accused of trying to steal a white baby, and even with my dad there apparently, this kid was still too white to be mixed race. This was the early 80s, so crazy stuff went down in hospitals. Mind you, we lived in an area where mixed-race families were non-existent at the time. Another fast forward 16 years, and my brother has a mountain biking accident and a TBI. He is literally hanging on by a thread. His friend calls and my mom rushes over to the hospital. His friend is literally there saying, "Yes, this is his mom, and she has her id. Bro didn't have an id though, and they are refusing to let her in." They ask for clarification if he is adopted or something, but apparently, the truth was the wrong answer. Hospital security escorted her out and she had to have my dad come, who by the way was just let right in. I highly doubt under any other circumstance they would erroneously not let a parent see their injured child because they don't look like them, but my mom being black with a very light-skinned child was apparently an issue. But anyway, back to the question, I wonder how many families have had drama thanks to genetics being so unpredictable. If my mom was white with a black husband, I am certain everyone would think she cheated on my dad with a white guy. Heck, people even accuse my mom of using an egg donor. Sometimes genes even skip generations, so a trait that hasn't popped up in a few generations can just randomly show up. No idea what the doctors thought, but I had a phone call from the wife asking for my blood type while they were in the hospital the next day, and I ducked home. I'm a. The wife is O. Bub is A+. I've done enough science to know where that's going. Have done DNA testing, I'm 100% the dad. Still not sure how to get more interesting science info about the myriad markers that apparently exist. Little different twist, I am Ukrainian. My great-grandfather was Crimean Tatar, who are mixed Turkic and Mongolian. My wife is Ukrainian and Italian. My first boy was blonde, my second was dark-haired, dark-skinned, and has the classic almond-shaped Asiatic eyes. Mongolian spot. Despite the fact that we know my family history, we ordered a test to make sure there was no separation at birth stuff, C-section. Yep, that's our boy. You would never know looking at us that that boy is genetically related to us. And we love him to pieces. Edit, autocorrect. My so and I just had our first in January. He has brown hair and I'm blonde. When she arrived, the nurse exclaimed, "Wow, look at that red hair. We know it's a recessive gene, but it wasn't the very first thing we expected to hear." We looked at each other for a moment and I said, in my drugged and exhausted post-labor stupor, "I swear she's yours." Quote, "Newborn had chlamydia, got it from the mom, obviously." So the mom admits she was cheating on the dad, because there's no other way to explain that one. Except the dad was cheating too, with the other guy's girlfriend, and all four of them had chlamydia, with no idea who had it first. They also had no idea who the actual dad was. That was a rodeo. Edit, well, that's what I get for redditing before bed. Let's be honest, everything we know about chlamydia we learned from teen romcoms.